Hello, this is Abigail Barella with Sparkle and Shine Guidance, and this is your super Libra full moon oracle for, what's the date? April 7th, 2020 at 18 degrees of Libra, and it's happening, well, in Pacific Standard Time. Let me say that first, because in some places around the world, this is happening on April 8th, but if you are in Pacific Standard Time, it's at 7:34 p.m. Tuesday, and you'll be feeling this. I mean, we're building up to this, so you're going to be feeling this for the next few days. And in terms of intensity, this is like pretty high intensity, and I'm going to talk about why. I'm going to try and keep this brief. If you want more information, I have a monthly astrology call where I talk about your personal astrology for the month and an overview, and I leave time for questions. And if you want to join that, super easy to do. I'll post the link below, and it's $98 for the rest of the year. So that gives you lots of months left until December, and we have a super potent year. So it's a great year to join us. There's so much happening in the astrology, so it's really hard to keep this simplified, but I'm just going to make other videos for all the other things that I want to say that are happening, coinciding, happening next month in May. May's super powerful. April's super crazy. May's super powerful. April's super crazy, okay? And so for the next 2 weeks, the intensity is super high, and what's interesting is that at the full moon, the intensity is high, and then we actually have a little spike in the intensity, okay? With the last quarter moon in Capricorn, the sun will square all of the Jupiter and Pluto, which has been conjunct. It will conjunct again when Jupiter goes retrograde. All of the external expansion, growth, realizations, and then retrograde, it will conjunct again, and then I think it's in November, I think it's November, where they meet up again in the sky, and that's a really big thing for this year. Okay, but let me stay focused on the full moon. So the full moon is happening at 18 degrees of Libra. The moon in Libra in general has to do with emotional security through pleasant experiences, through aesthetically pleasing environment, and through balance, harmony, peace, and justice. All voices being heard, really listening without judgment, listening without fear. And so it's really interesting. This Libra full moon happens always. This is an intense full moon, always. And always it highlights this polarity between the individual Aries, the warrior, like the kind of like just in it for me, I'm just here for me, and Libra, the we are, like we're stronger together, we can do this, we can work this out. And this full moon always highlights issues or things that need to be worked on in a partnership, in a family structure, and also in the larger society. So that's not really new. What's interesting about this full moon in particular, well, first you want to look to where 18-ish degrees of Libra is for you, and if you have anything in Aries at around 18 degrees, or Cancer, Capricorn will be squared. And this is not a square with the nodes, but it is interesting that it's at the last little bit of the North Node being in Cancer, where we're getting this full moon, highlighting these 4 directions, the cardinal signs of the chart. So what I want to come back to is that looking at where 18 degrees of Libra is for you is where you will be finding that you want balance, you want justice, you want peace. And just recognizing that you might not get to it at this full moon. This full moon just might highlight where it needs to be. And I often say, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, that the biggest challenges bring the biggest growth, right? And so this is a very challenging full moon. And we have Mars in Aquarius. Aquarius is about the mind and intellect. Mars is about the head and our body in general. So it has to do with information. It has to do with processing information. It has to do with also healing, because Aquarius has to do with healing. And then Uranus and Taurus, which is all about sudden shifts Uranus in Tarot is the Tower card, which is like everything has to kind of like be shaken up, and it's like shaking out the rug underneath you, pulling the rug out underneath you and then shaking it out. And Taurus does have to do with the earth, does have to do with our bodies as well, especially our voices and our sensuality. So Libra is ruled by Venus. Venus also rules Taurus. So we're having a lot of that energy alongside this intellect, this warrior energy. And ultimately, it's highlighting how, as humans, if you consider yourself human, that it is healthy and it is natural to have different belief systems. It is healthy and it is natural to be able to voice those things. And it is something that is really important for all of our growths as a society, to be able to rationally and compassionately interact with each other in that way. And now how we are interacting mostly now is through technology, which adds a layer of not only anonymity, but also a lack of humanness and a lack of compassion. So it's really important also to recognize this and to understand that to bring in that compassion at this time is super, super, and kindness is super welcome, right? Moving on. So changes, sudden shifts, Uranus and Mars, whenever they have a square, I'm always like telling people, this is going to be a time where you want to be close to home. And so we are close to home. Hopefully you are. If you have to go out and work or do your thing, just being a little bit more cautious in your movements through the world, when you're driving, when you're out in the world, being a little bit more cautious, because Uranus square Mars at a full moon that's already very active and has to do with our heads and our minds. If we're overly distracted, it can cause accidents. So the other thing with Uranus and Taurus making a square to Mars is sometimes it can be earthquakes or volcano type activity that sometimes can happen. Not always. Sometimes these things are just what's happening on the inside. Like if you think about what's a volcano on the inside, like a burst of anger, outbursts. And so being really aware of what you need before this full moon comes, and making sure that you take care of you and get it so that you don't have an outburst that is unnecessary with your family or your people or your work. Okay, lastly, to kind of wrap up, Venus will be going retrograde next month. And Venus is she's newly in Gemini, and she's trining Mars. And Venus and Mars are the archetypes that are being opposed right now. And Venus has to do with love, attracting either a mate, but also goodness to you. So attraction. It has to do with our personal finances and money. And so the themes of love, money, and attraction, like what you're attracting to you, what you're, because it's in Aquarius and the intellect, it's how we're shaping our reality around that ability to attract goodness to us. That conversation between Venus is really important because she's going to go retrograde, and she's actually in her shadow right now. She's going to go retrograde next month. Venus only goes retrograde about 2.5 years. If you want to understand this more, I'll have a whole separate video that you should subscribe to my YouTube if you want to see it. But Mars has to do with the warrior and the fight and it's raw. It's also like raw sexual energy. It's like just how we initiate into the world and how we like move forward and move through things. And so this is also a really good time to exercise and take good care of your body. I said, yeah, Mars in Aquarius. Mars in Aquarius has to do with that intellect. And then Venus in Mercury. Mercury also has to do with processing and communication. So doing that work as a couple, doing that work in your business to make sure your communication is clear and to also get the support that you need. There's so many people doing Zoom support for individuals and couples. I'm one. I do intuitive healing for individuals, and I do astrological readings for couples and individuals. So 30% off until April 15th. Use promo code April.